All right, we are recording, and I would like to call this meeting, special meeting of the Bethel Board of Selectmen to order for Thursday, February 18th, 2021.
And I will do likewise, call to order the Board of Finance for this special meeting on Thursday, February 18th.
If you would please rise, join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for
which it stands,
one
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. First, we've got a bunch of presentations tonight. First up is Department 140, the Office of the Assessor. And I see Izzy is with us tonight. Welcome.
welcome.
And the floor is turned over to you.
Wonderful. I'm going to try to do the best I can. I'm in North Carolina. I left at 4 o'clock this morning and I made it, thank goodness, before the snow. So I'm trying to do everything remotely. I hope I brought everything I need for the questions we get. My budget is pretty, I have not changed anything. The only thing that's changed is my employee salary, and that's because I do have, my assistant is on steps. So she's had to take a couple steps. I think she has one more next year after this, and then she'll be at the top of her grade.
Izzy, can you hold on 1 second? Deanne,
Yeah.
Can you enable screen sharing, please? That way I can share the Open Go screen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I did, Brad. Let me do it. There you go.
It still says disabled.
Is it?
Oh, there it goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. So, so really, I mean, the assessor's office, I said, with COVID, it's been a trying year. It's very hard for our office. We do a lot of physical work, a lot of in person. We go up, as you notice, if you talk to Chris Baldwin, building permits are up. That means we're busier. Businesses, thank goodness, have been doing very well. We haven't lost a lot of businesses. They've stayed, pretty stable. That being said, I don't know how it's going to go as we go into the year, and we've got some appeals because of the Board of Assessment appeals, but not too bad. I think we're at, I said about right now, and they have till tomorrow to file for the Board of Assessment appeals. We got 7 real estate and 9 for personal property. And a lot of these people were not in their office for personal property. And the hard thing is I think they weren't getting their notices. We do try to email. We do try to, we send them a postcard. There's a lot of way we try to go above and beyond to get hold of people because, we don't want to put a penalty on anything. Real estate has seen quite a bit of increase. I think we've gained over, I can tell you, well, our total net assessment for real estate is at $1,750,000,000. So we look pretty good for real estate. We gained about 18 accounts this last year, but we had a lot of permits that were finished basements, decks, interior alterations. All of those is stuff that we have to go look at. My dues in education, I'm a little worried about that because of COVID. We've missed some of the courses. We have a lot of continuing education. We have about 50 hours that we have to do every 5 years. Because of COVID, some of these have been canceled or moved. So I'm a little worried about our education. I have Dana, who has now acquired her CCMA 1, which is her first designation, but she is now wants to work towards her CCMA 2. That covers the commercial part of real estate, evaluations. Nora is my clerk, and she has now taken 3 courses and needs to take her 4th, take a reval course, and then she can sit for her CCMA 1, her first test. So we've been very busy.
So you basically have 2 people you're training at the same time then, right?
Correct.
different stages? Okay.
Different stages.
Curious to know how many new accounts did you say you have this year?
How many what?
New accounts?
New accounts are, I'll tell you, and it's interesting because for real estate, we've gone up about 18 accounts, but we've gone up in the net assessment, 16 million. So
Okay.
we've been pretty busy.
Well, I was wondering, are these residential properties or commercial or both?
Both residential, commercial, industrial.
Okay.
Personal property, we've lost a few counts, but we've still gone up about 6 million in there, and they're, from last year to this year. Motor vehicles, we've lost about 600 accounts, but I do think with the loans and different financing, people are getting newer cars. And so we've increased that about the net assessment, 7 million.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's good. What else can I tell you? We still have, we've done a lot of executive orders. We've had because of COVID, thank goodness last year, a lot of our homeowners who were on the program last year and had to refile. Lamont did, Governor Lamont passed an executive order and they were able to keep those benefits. So that was wonderful for our elderly and our disabled. They're going to do it so far again, I think this year. The only ones who have to apply would be new applicants. And that would be for our veterans and our homeowners.
Mhm.
So Izzy, Robert, in terms of new accounts and motor vehicles and things like that, what's your feeling in terms of the economic health of the immediate community? Are we tracking about the same? Have we stepped back a little bit? What's your sense?
No, I really think we're doing very well. I think, I think we're one of the few towns that is actually doing spec homes. We don't have there's a lot of towns I've talked to and they are, unless it's a custom built home, they're not building.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Toll Brothers who've done all, Maple Avenue, they've done the Summit. We had RMS did Stony Hill. So, we really have done pretty well.
Good.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. A lot of New York residents are moving here. So that's good. Especially Maple, they don't care about a big lot. A nice little lot is okay for them.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Izzy,
Yes. Hi, Cynthia.
hi there. Is any of your training available by webinar, or when you say cancel, I'm moving, canceled, has some of it been converted to webinars?
Some of them have been canceled and they haven't been rescheduled. I was able to, last year, I took the tax collectors, the CCMC first course, because I think that's only beneficial that I learned that as well. That started out as a in-person and COVID hit, and we ended up doing a Zoom and it worked out fine. So I think they're now talking, even with the assessors, they'll probably do Zoom classes.
That's good, because I would hate to have to, double up. You have expenses, obviously you don't have expenses that you ordinarily wouldn't have, but I would hate to have to double up. I just hope that it meters out,
And it's hard because a lot of what we have is usually the assessors are in June. So I can't have all three of us go to classes. So usually I'm the one who goes on the back burner so that they can get their continuing, get their accreditation. But I still have to continue my hours because I don't want to not be the assessor anymore.
I got it. Thanks.
Yeah, Nick.
Excellent. The old assessor chased people with out-of-state plates a lot. And with all these new people moving in, Plumtree's Height condominium must have 30 New York plates that's been there for over 3 years. And I can almost give you the number of units. What are we doing about that?
We are working on that. We have hired MTS, Municipal Tax Services. And they have now to date, right now what they did is, and I have that number here, let me try to find my papers. What they did was they took all of our 17 list motor vehicles and all of our 19 list. And what they did was check who wasn't on 18. So were you on 17, your reg lapsed, you went on 19. So we picked up about 185 cars during that. They are now in the process of going through the out of states, wherever they are, from New York, Maine, Florida, and they're doing that. We haven't gotten any more money in yet for that because they send them a letter, then they have a chance to, talk with MTS before they're added.
So a third company is doing that? I'm sorry?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, we pick up quite a few. I mean, when we're out in field work, we pick up quite a few cars. I think I have about approximately 20 on my personal property that we've gone out, we've seen them consecutively, we add them. But we have hired a company because I think it's important that, if I'm paying my taxes, I want them to pay their taxes. That's that concept, and I think they should.
So you send a letter to these people and
MTS sends a letter to them.
okay, so what's the follow-up? It's just a letter, and then if they don't react, what's the next step?
It's quite a process. They first will go out. They go out usually from 6 at night, I think till 6 in the morning. I can't remember the exact hours. I'd have to get that for you. And then they check these plates multiple times. It's not just one time. Then they send them a letter, inquiry letter, and then they have to respond. And then at that point, they can either say, yes, it's legit, or no, there's a reason.
So technically, they can still have a New York plate, but they're paying the taxes to Bethel?
Yes.
Thank you.
Izzy, I got just a couple more.
Yep.
I just want to clarify when you said that we haven't lost any businesses. Does that mean that no businesses have closed, or because of COVID, closed down or gone out of business?
We have lost some. It has been, we haven't lost a lot. I mean, there have been some. We have, O'Neill's is now closed. I think Mike's might have, I'm not sure, I'm not about there, but I went from last year, I'll tell you, we went down 19 in personal property accounts. And last year I had 1,326. This year I have 1,307. So we have lost businesses. That could be the little homeowner business as well. It may not have been on Greenwood Avenue.
Right, but I'm just
Numbers
curious.
have gone up.
Yeah, and the other part of it is, is there, I mean, the way my neighborhood is going, I mean, my neighbor sold their house in 3 hours, you know what I'm saying? So there must be so many new homeowners and residents that would be paying taxes. And can you repeat that number, or do you know that number?
Which one?
Like new homes, people who've moved here, who've established residency.
I wouldn't know that. I could get that number. I could look at the sales and give you how many new homeowners, if that's what you mean.
I think it's important just because for revenue purposes, then we would know, have a better idea of what might be coming in.
Right, so we can do, and in the last, I don't know, let me see if I don't give it the deeds amount. I could tell you the deeds, the volumes that we looked at, but I don't have the actual transfers, but I can get that.
I'd be interested in the.
All right, let me write that down. It probably won't be till next week, because again, but I can maybe get one of my staff to extract that.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, sales numbers.
Any other questions from Board of Finance members?
Okay.
Matt, we don't have any other questions on the Board of Finance, it looks like.
Rich and Paul, any questions for Izzy?
Yeah, Izzy, what's the total increase in terms of valuation? If you sum up everything in terms of real estate, auto, or personal property for the grand list so
About
far, year to
1.4%.
date?
About 1.4%.
1.4. What's that in terms of dollars?
About $1 million.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Rich?
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, no further questions? I
No.
think, anybody else? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Izzy.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weather down there.
Thank you. It's better than the snow you're having.
All right, moving on to Department 250, Planning and Zoning. I'd like to welcome Beth Cavagna, Town Planner. And the floor is yours, Beth.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to clarify after watching a couple of the Board of Finance meetings, just to clarify my department staff before we start. I have 2 union members. I am the classified. I have 1 part-time employee, and I also have a dog that just requires treats. Um, Going forward, my budget has basically stayed flat. Anything in as far as salaries and increases pertaining to that, I would defer to Brad and Bob to explain to you. And my budget basically speaks for itself, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Brad, can you take down that page, please? Just so we can see everybody. Thanks. Board of Finance members, any questions for Beth? All right, what breed of dog is that, Beth?
It is a golden retriever, and her name is Bird.
Excellent. Matt, I think no more questions from the Board of Finance.
All right, Rich and Paul, any questions for Beth?
No,
I do have a closing comment then, if there's no questions.
Okay.
That would just be in relation to COVID. When COVID started last March, I expected a tremendous stop, a lot of staleness within the office as far as activity and things of that nature. But I will tell you that COVID has taught us all a lot. You know, I know we have social services and the seniors and things like that, but I have to tell you that it was a great learning experience and opportunity to work with the businesses in town, especially the restaurants, trying to make provisions for them to do outdoor dining, to increase some of their signage, letting it go a little illegal, because it was important to them to feel that it was an opportunity for them to still promote their business. And with the residential uses and things like that, it was great to be working with residents for additions, decks, pools, and things of that nature, because they all knew they were going to have to hunker down, that this was going to be a long-term effect on our town. The other part to that too is, as you all know, I cannot believe the residential development here in town. We have had many lots that have been sitting there for years, and all of a sudden they're built upon and they're sold. Like as you, I'm sure has been a great learning experience for you guys. It really has touched me. And I have still learned to enjoy my job and love my job, because I do have the opportunity to help others.
Thank you, Beth. Beth, that raised a question that I just wanted to run past you. We often get the question, is the continued growth in the grand list sustainable? And folks may look around and maybe believe that building lots are reducing in number. But what's your view on the continued forward movement, right? People are coming into town because they must like what we're doing. There's no push away from that perspective. What's your view as to the ability to sustain further growth?
I do believe that with a lot of the actions of the Planning and Zoning Commission, particularly in the TOD area, that we still have the opportunity to grow. Sometimes we are bringing people into that growth, kicking and screaming. But when I look at the downtown area, especially in the COVID time period that we've had and the activities that have taken place there, people walking on the streets and things like that, I think some of the investments that we have made as far as planning is concerned, with our plans, with our affordable housing regulations, that we are ahead of the game as far as the town and on the state level. After spending 6 hours on a public housing hearing this afternoon, I am very proud of what the town of Bethel has done.
Thank you very much, Beth. Appreciate that.
Beth, I actually attended that meeting too.
I wasn't going to say anything, Cynthia, but I saw you and you spoke very well. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you. Yeah, I didn't see your name up there, but yeah, it was good. It was a good bunch of people talking.
It was
Yeah.
very informative.
Well, I do have one last question then. since the COVID pandemic started, is your department more busy, less busy, or the same versus prior year? Would you guess?
I expected our department to be slower. I expected to get more things done because of that, but I found that the department was a lot more busier, and it was just as busy as previous years. And there were times when we were busier than last year.
Okay.
I was
Thank
shocked, basically, is what I'm saying.
you. Mhm. All right, I don't have any further questions. Rich and Paul, do you have any?
No,
All right, Bob, you got Board of Finance is done?
Last call, Board of Finance questions? No, we look good. Thanks, Matt. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Matt. All right, moving on to Department 230. We're going to have several departments in a row that are related to Public Works. This is Public Works Administration. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you tonight Eric Swanson, who is our new Public Works Director. Eric started with us in November, this past November, after a long search to fill that position. Eric is a licensed PE. He has great credentials, comes from a global engineering consulting firm, and pleased to welcome him to his first Board of Finance presentation. So Eric, the floor is yours.
Wow, Beth made that look easy. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. Dion, I'm assuming I have permission. And I got a few slides. Let's see. Okay, can everyone see that?
yep,
Okay, great. And everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So I just put together, this is a brief presentation I have just to kind of cover the highlights, since we have, there's a lot of departments. I'm going to cover 230 Public Works, 220 Fleet Maintenance, 240 Highway Department, 245 Transfer Station. Actually, I'm not really going to cover that. There's nothing really for that. 260 Building Maintenance and 270 Tree Warden, just so you guys are aware. I'm sure that's no surprise. And like I said, I'm just going to go briefly over the highlights, and then if you would save your questions till I'm done, it's not going to take very long, then we can get into any questions you have, since I'm sure you have already had a chance to look through all the numbers. Okay, so just briefly, before I get into it, I just wanted to introduce myself. Thanks, Matt, for the background. Unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to meet you all in person due to this COVID craziness. So hopefully sooner rather than later, I'll get the opportunity. As Matt mentioned, just a little bit about me. I come from the private sector. I've worked my whole career so far in the consulting engineering business. My licenses include a professional engineering license in Connecticut. My focus has been mostly in transportation infrastructure, although it's multidisciplinary. And most of my work has been for public clients, from DOTs to various municipalities of various sizes, large and small. And most recently, as Matt mentioned, I work for Arup, which is a global company, which you probably have not heard of just because they're, for a few reasons. Well, one, they're UK based, and they also tend to focus on super large infrastructure projects. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'm just going to jump into it and cover the highlights. So again, I'm just talking about the largest percentage changes from last year. We had the administrative vehicle maintenance went up 12%, but that is really not worth digging into. I think it's only $400. Same with the building maintenance vehicles. That looks big as a percentage, but it's only $200. Public Works Administration. The biggest change here is in the contracted services that we contract each year. This is a 14% change, which works out to about $5,000. on the dot, actually. And a large reason for this is the projects that we're looking at coming up in this fiscal year. We have several grants actually with for sidewalk projects, construction costs over $1 million, I think close to $1.5 million. And those are going to require survey and appraisal services. Also, we need to do engineering evaluations for the Beach Street and Taylor Road culverts. Highway Department, this is the biggest budget element. Snow and ice contracting has gone up 11% due to the new paved areas at the school campus. That's sort of an uneven growth, by the way. I'll point that out just because of the nature of these contracts tend to be multi-year. So don't always see that change smoothly year over year. And also contracted services that have to do with street cleaning, drainage, pipe and catch basin cleaning and line painting. That's increased. Okay, I expect we'll spend most of the time talking about this. I want to take a deep dive into road construction, which is part of the highway budget. Obviously, it's 5404, and explain why we're showing such a significant increase. So how did we get to this number of 900,000, which represents an 80% increase? So I'll walk you through the logic there. So just starting from scratch and looking at the number of roads and the mileage we have in town and the expected service life of those roads, we came up with a number of 975,000 as a number, an annual number of what's needed to address the paving needs at the expected service life. So starting with that, and also keeping in mind that prior year's funding, we had some proposals will cut back in terms of this particular budget in the past couple of years. So in the last fiscal year, it was cut down by 475,000. In the prior, it was 250,000 less than what was requested. So we came up with a number of 1.16 million, which we thought was sufficient to make up for those funding gaps and get us back on track so that we would have less than $1 million each year in future years. That worked out to about 12 roads that we were going to reconstruct. However, when looking at the budget overall, we decided to bring that down to 900,000. So that brings the list down by 4 roads from 12 to 8. And I think since this is such a big ticket item, I think it's worth me just quickly reading off what those roads were. I think you're all familiar. You would probably help you kind of get a sense. So I'll just read these off quickly. The original 12 roads that were part of this proposal that we think are the #1 priority to get repaired are Christie Drive, Mansfield Street, Fleetwood Avenue, Grassy Plain Terrace, Drummers Lane, Saxon Road, Farnham Hill, Windaway Road, Van Campen Lane, Falls Lane, Ravencrest Drive, and Valley Court. Now, cutting it down to 900,000, it wasn't a simple matter of just, dividing by 12. Some of these roads are bigger sections than others, obviously. So the 4 that we ended up having to cut out by bringing this down was Fleetwood Avenue, Falls Lane, Ravencrest Drive, and Valley Court. So hopefully by me reading through that, it kind of gives you guys a sense of what we're looking at. I expect there'll be discussion and questions on this. Obviously, it's a big item. Okay, so I think that's really the biggest part here, and I'll just wrap up with a couple more slides. Building maintenance, we had an increase in contracted services of 5%. Contracted services is one of the larger items within the building maintenance budget, so that's about $17,000. As you can see by looking at OpenGov. It's really hard to pinpoint any one thing because there are so many different contracts for various services. If you want, we can get into that, but some of the bigger ones were a change in emergency generator service costs, HVAC, and cleaning and roof and automatic doors. But we can get more into that if you guys have questions. And finally, in tree warden, this one had no increases over the last year's budget. If you weren't aware, the prior tree warden retired in the fall, actually just before I came on board. So we are currently without a tree warden, which we're making do for now, but we should really get somebody. We don't want to go too long without one, so we're seeking somebody who's a qualified certified arborist, which we think is the best qualification for the role. And meanwhile, you're probably aware of the ash borer issue. So meanwhile, we're going ahead with our plan to take care of the affected trees. We're going to be taking down about half of them by June of this year, and then expect to get the remainder the following fiscal year. Okay, capital projects. Also, this is a big number, big magnitude item, obviously. I'm sure there'll be questions about this. I'm showing the top 6 items here. I'm not going to go into them. Obviously, we can go into it later, but I do want to stress, really, when it comes to capital projects, we really need to replace our aging trucks. So we do have, even some of our first line trucks are over 25 years old. And so, we're just, it's kind of, at any moment, we don't know when things could break down. So we really want to have, we really want to get those out of the fleet and replace them with new vehicles. And in terms of deferring this, I think I also point out that we have less leeway to defer these kind of costs than you might think because of the long lead time to get replacements. So it could take months to get one of these trucks. They're pretty special. It's not like going out and buying a Honda Civic, obviously. So there's a long lead time. So I would emphasize those 2 points when it comes to the capital projects. And that's it. I think I've covered the highlights. Brad, I'll let you take over the screen. I will stop sharing, and then I'll hand it over to Matt and Bob if you guys have anything else you want to emphasize that you think I missed or didn't cover.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Am I live? Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Eric. Just to my colleagues in the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, we are going to go back and go through those departments on OpenGov, starting with 230. So I just wanted Eric to do an overview on the top line things that are, that are most important. They have the biggest changes. And of course, Bob Dibble is here to talk about highway. And Eric, do you have Ed Hook to talk about fleet, or are you and Bob going to cover?
Bob's going to cover Ed's.
Okay, all right, that's cool. All right, so if you want to maybe put 230 back up, Brad, and then we start with the Board of Finance and start with questions.
I have questions.
Yep.
So for Eric, right?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Eric. I'm Cynthia McCorkindale.
Hi, nice to meet
You
you.
don't know me yet. Well, now
I'm going to defer all my questions to Bob.
so here's the thing. You will never see me cut the road repair, the highway department, ever. I always want to fund it with cash, but it has been cut the past few years, and I have voted against cutting it. It's the only thing I don't want to cut ever. So my question to you really is just about the contracted services. And you said you had some grants for some sidewalks. And so all the prerequisite work or the accompanying work is in terms of that grant, right? For the sidewalks and whatnot?
Yeah, the major things we have 3 sidewalk projects totaling about $1.5 million altogether. And then there's 2 culverts that have been identified as needing evaluation and most likely replacement.
Right. So here's my question. So isn't it with the projects, it's kind of fluid, like they come and they go, they start and they finish. So why wouldn't some projects be done and then more projects so that it wouldn't jump? This seems like a little bit high to me. jumping to that. Are there none that finished up that you,
I mean, I guess all I can't really speak to, prior years and how things have, how that's fluctuated, if that's what you're asking. It seems like this is maybe a bit larger number of projects than typical to me.
yeah,
So that,
Cynthia, there's a $5,000 increase in the contracted services for the engineering work. And
is it
as
just
in the
for
past,
that?
as in the past, we've always had to do the engineering services first for the state to provide the grant for the actual construction of the project.
Which
So
is
that's
why
what-
I asked the question, Bob K, if I may, it's why I asked the question, if this $5,000 was associated exclusively with the sidewalk grant.
well, that's not what you said at the beginning. You said the increase. You were talking about the increase.
Well, it's an increase of $5,000.
Yeah, but
And I
yeah,
wanted,
so if I may jump in,
thank you.
we do need appraisal services for the permanent easements we'll be taking on the sidewalks. We've got about 5 or 6 homes, and each one of those appraisals alone is almost $1,000 each. So yes, I think you could say that is an unusual service that we need.
Okay,
If-
so
And that's in addition to surveying and culvert evaluations.
If I
Hopefully
can
that
help
helps.
out a little,
Oh,
if
go
I
ahead.
can help out a little bit. The sidewalk project that Eric is talking about is from, I don't know, Cynthia, have you ever heard of lot SIP?
yes, of course.
Okay, so there's low SIP.
Yep.
Local capital improvement, then lot SIP, which is transportation. This project dates back almost 3 years ago. Yeah, in fact, I think it started in the Malloy administration.
I
And then,
remember it. I know where you're going.
oh, okay, all right. Well, so it looks, so it finally went through bonding this year in Hartford. So we're actually going to get the money. So that's why we have to ramp up, because not only do you have to do all the design work and in the easements and all that stuff that is on our nickel, but you also have to supervise the project, and you have to hire a DOT certified person to do that. So that's why there's a little bit of an increase there.
I understand that, but I guess my question logistically is, so let's say you have 10 projects in 1 year and you X dollars. So you finish 4 of those projects. So you
Oh,
know
okay.
contracted services for those 4 projects. Wouldn't that make up the difference, theoretically speaking, in some cases? That's
Yes. Yeah, it would. We have a couple other projects that are kind of piling on, like the 2 culvert projects.
yeah.
One of them, I think the Taylor Road culvert project, was on the 10-year plan when I started here 11 years ago, and it keeps getting pushed down the road, no pun intended. Same with the Codfish Hill culvert. So we've got a couple of big things that have kind of bunched up a little bit. So
So I guess
hope that helps.
to just allay, my concerns, can
Sure.
you speak to any projects that have finished up? So what I'm saying is, if there are 3 projects that finished up, maybe if they hadn't been finished, we'd have 10,000 more. I'm trying to understand the scope of the work in a way.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, we can give you more of a breakdown of each of those projects that are coming up, because I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Some new projects come on, some old projects go off, so why can't the line be flat, right?
Well, yeah, well, why can't it? I always ask, why can't it? But yeah,
Sure, yeah, no, I get it, yeah, I get it.
yeah, I'd like to know that.
Okay, well, we'll make a note of that, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Cynthia, are you all set?
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Any other questions from the Board of Finance? Can't see you all. Nick, yeah, go Nick, sorry.
I see that account 230, the salary went up 5%, the salary line. I mean, is there steps in that? I understand it's contracted, there's something in the union, but 5% in that account. Is there a reason for that, Bob K?
Yeah, there is. Actually, what you're looking at is similar to the police department. Police had 3 years of retro. This one had 2 years of retro. So when I get into the transfer station, I'll give you some details on the change in those two. But yeah, you're looking at 2 years of retro plus the current year's projection. So that's why you see a 5% increase.
Thank you.
If I could add to that, in the last year, we didn't have the full salary in for the DPW director either, because that position was vacant. So we were sharing with utilities a little bit. So that was depressed a little bit. So now it's back up to where it should be.
Thank you.
Okay.
And last call for Board of Finance questions. Matt, looks like we're set on the Board of Finance with respect to that department.
Okay, Rich and Paul, do you have any questions on Department 230 on Public Works Admin?
It was just that.
Go ahead, Rich.
Paul.
No, you go ahead.
But it was just that all that capital, we'll be discussing capital at a later date, that his capital is not included in his budget, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Correct. All right, anything else, Paul?
Yeah, in Eric's presentation here, he spoke about Beach Street here. Maybe I'm confused. Where does that contracted services for that fall in? Is that under highway, or is this under Public Works?
The contracted services for engineering services is under Public Works Administration 230.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is, we spent a lot of money on Beach Street a couple of years ago. And Richie, here, you can help me out here. I thought we did quite a bit on Beach Street, which is adjacent to Ballard and Ellie's there.
Right. Well, we put a new water main down there and repaved the road, but they never did anything with the culvert itself. We went around the culvert. We didn't go
All right.
the culvert or under the culvert. We went around it just for this particular reason, that if the culvert had to be replaced, they didn't have to mess with the water line.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to Department 220 Fleet Maintenance, and Eric and Bob, you're still up?
So Brad, maybe put the open gov up for 220. Eric, did you want to speak to this again or just take questions?
I'll just take questions. I mean, this one, I don't think there's not much change. The largest percentage changes are only a couple $100. So just shoot with any questions.
Board of Finance members, any questions?
Could you detail again the salary situation, the employees and the increases?
It's the union, with the retros. It's the same union.
Two or 3 year?
It's a 2-year retro plus the current year projection.
Okay.
I think I can see all the Board of Finance members now. Any other questions from the Board of Finance? Matt, no more questions on the Board of Finance with respect to 220.
Okay, Rich and Paul, questions?
Just on 101, that's for two people, isn't that? Bob Kozlowski?
Yeah, you've got the chief mechanic and the mechanic. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, that's it. Okay, moving on to Department 240 Highway Department. Eric and Bob, you're still up.
So Brad, you bring up the expenses.
And
there's a bunch here. So
yeah, this one I really want to explore, so everybody really understands what's going on there, why there's a big increase. So and I think Cynthia really hit it on the head when she described that. So go ahead, Bob and Eric.
well, I mean, I think I hope, unless there's any questions, I tried to kind of give the story of how we got to that number. And when I'm talking about the bottom line there, the 900,000 for the road construction. And again, we started off with 12 roads that we consider to be in most need of repair. And by cutting that down, we're now at 8. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what we're talking, of how that dollar amount translates to the real world.
Is the cost of the paving per mile the same as last year? Is up, down, where do we stand?
I'm going to ask Bob Dibble to speak to that. If he's
Say that question again. I didn't hear that.
The cost per mile, or however you measure it, of the paving, material cost, construction costs, etc. How do we stand this next year versus what we've experienced in the past? Is it relatively flat?
Yeah, I think our paving costs now, this is what I hear through the grapevine, because it's a state bid through Department of Administrative Services. But it sounds like our paving costs, our per tonnage paving costs might be 2.5 or 3% someplace in there. Now, the only thing I gotta keep in mind on that, there's also there's basically a material adjustment cost in there also, and that has to do with the petroleum product. So that's a separate cost increase. That's figured out on a weekly basis through the season. Past few years, it's been basically flat, so it's really nothing to worry about at this point. You know, if you're paying $4 a gallon at the gas pump for gas in the middle of summer, yeah, my paving costs are going to go up. That's how that works.
Hey, Rob, if I can, I'm going to add something to that. I have a list of those 12 roads, the original request that Bob Dibble put in to Eric, that Eric sent to me, and I will share that with the Board of Finance. The paving cost per mile, something you were, I think that's what you wanted to look at. It kind of depends on what kind of work needs to be done. If there's a shim or an overlay, it's going to be less expensive. If the road requires full depth reclamation, new drains and all the new sumps and all that, then it's a lot more expensive. It can be 350, 400,000 per mile to do that. So what Bob does is, he evaluates every road and comes up with a number which is dependent on what the level of work needs to be done. And so he calculates that all out. Every road has a sheet that calculates the number of tons, number of hours, the contractor time, all that kind of stuff. And he puts it on a spreadsheet. I will send that to Bob Manfreda, or I'll just have Dion send it to the whole board so you can see that list. And it totals up to 1.1 million. Now, one thing I will say, and I don't want to get Bob Dibble in trouble here, he's very, very good at stretching dollars. And it's usually the case that he can do a little bit more at the end of the season than what he's planned. It's not something we can plan on, but the reason I tell you that is that his estimate numbers are super solid. You're not going to go over unless there's some major catastrophe and all the asphalt in the world is sucked up by the state DOT or something, which happens once in a blue moon. But I'll send you that road number so you can see exactly what it is. And just as a reminder, and we've talked about this for 10, 12 years now, we know the road number needs to be higher. What we want to do is try to get it up to 900,000, 975, as Eric said, and then keep it there year after year. So you're not looking at a big increase from one budget year to the next. For a number of years, we were borrowing money to fix roads. And that's not a long-term sustainable plan. You really need to move that into the operating budget. We tried to push it up to 700,000-800,000 last year, but it was a tough budget year, so it got knocked back down. So what Bob's request is at 1.1 million is a realistic number to try to get caught up. We're going to try to get this into the operating budget where we can start catching up again, because we really are in danger of falling back a little bit the way we were 10, 12 years ago when the roads had really gotten in bad shape then. Fortunately, people's memories are short. They may not remember that. We had gone through the Stony Hill Sewer Project in the 2000s, and that had torn up a lot of roads, and we had a lot of catch up to do. So we don't want to fall backwards on that. So I'll send you that information so you have it.
Thank you.
Could I clarify something? So the 900,000, maybe I misunderstood, but I know that the desired goal is 1.1 million, but I thought the 900,000, so you took away 4 roads, and I was thinking that was a step to the 1.1 million, but you're saying that 1.1 million is the.
What Bob recommended is 1.1 million. the reason it says 900,000, that you can just blame it on me. I'm trying to shoehorn numbers together to make an acceptable budget. And, you know, and I hope we can work this out so that we get that number up to that level. Obviously, all of us have a lot of work before we get there, but no, I can tell you that neither Bob or Eric were happy with me for knocking it down to 900.
No,
But,
I just wanted to clarify because Bob Dibble knows how much I love the roads. In fact, I was going to go for a ride in the paver, but I've had both shoulders replaced now, so I can do it this summer. So
There you
I'm,
go.
yeah, I'm riding on the,
Oh,
oh yeah.
well, I think you should take a ride in a plow truck too.
Well,
But-
yeah, I'll do it all now. I've got the, you know. my- That's all. Thank you.
You know, I just want to say one thing. Anybody on the board, you know, when we're doing a road reconstruction thing, reconstruction. I mean, for me personally, it's like the coolest thing in the world that goes on, right? And it's so interesting, right? So if any of you guys are ever interested in like coming and hanging out with me for a couple hours or half a day or something, let Kathy know in the office. Give me your name, you know, your contact information, and if you want to come out and hang out with me, it'll be a blast. I promise.
As a town risk manager, can we get them to sign a waiver before they get in?
So,
Board of Finance, any more questions on Department 240?
Nick had his hand up.
I don't know. I'm sitting back here and I'm just sticker shocked. In the beginning of this whole thing, I thought we were going to try to get a flat budget. And I understand it's the department head's job to say what they feel they need. But I mean, I'm adding up millions of dollars here. And, you know, it's still on the news. We're going through a pandemic. The unemployment rate went, over 800,000 jobs this week. I'm just a little shocked, but I'm listening. I'm not going to pass judgment until I see the final numbers here.
Okay.
And one more, you know, the town always gets beat. The 200 schoolies are going to jump in and rah, and then the town takes it into shorts again. And I think that's really unfair for the town. And the highway department's doing a good job. The roads look good. The town looks good. I appreciate them clearing the snow off of Greenwood Avenue this last week. These are good things, but it's just, you know, we're going to take it in the shorts again in the town. I can see it coming. So that's it. Bobby, thank you for your work. Eric, I look forward to meeting you one day.
To Nick's point, I have a similar frustration, although my verbiage would not be identical to his in terms of what the town may be taking in whatever garments are mentioned. But the frustration for me, and I imagine it is for Nick, is the amount of power that the unions have in terms of salaries, especially for the school. It is really frustrating to only have 15% of the pie to look at and to have that be so cast in stone. It's very difficult. So I'm trying to sort of manage my whatever expectations to very low. But I also really think that the target of a zero budget should really be, you know, chanted like a mantra. But thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments from the Board of Finance? That looks like the Board of Finance is all set with, Department 240.
Rich and Paul, any further questions? Yep.
Yeah, I got it for Bob Dibble. I just have a quick question. Of those 8 roads, how many require major reclamation? Because I thought we were in that position where we've just about covered about most of those major reclamations.
yeah, it's correct, Paul. We have covered quite a bit of them. As a matter of fact, you know, the 88 miles of road we have, you know, we're about 55, 56 miles of reclamation work.
Right.
So on the current list, Van Camping, that's a full up reconstruction. Wind Away Road is a full up reconstruction, and in Saxon Woods, and I think that's it. The rest of them are
not very long roads, are they?
No. You know, like I said, you know, I've been saying for the past few years, you know, our reconstruction works is down to onesies and twosies here and there. You know, they're 7,000-8,000 square yard jobs, so there's not, you know, there isn't anything crazy out there.
Has asphalt gone up in terms of per ton?
It does. Each year it goes up incrementally. It hasn't been too bad. You know, the big thing that gets you is the escalation that's in the contracts.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, we buy our pavement through the state of Connecticut Department of Administrative Services. You know, the biggest thing that's helped us is, you know, the price at the gas pump has been pretty stable or gone down. You know, and that's been pretty helpful because that petroleum market is tied to our cost.
Okay. All right. Just curious. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Rich?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Bobby, sand and salt, how are we doing this year with sand and salt? And do you foresee increase in the sand and salt budget for next year?
Yeah, you know, right
They're
now
talking
we're
about-
holding, I'm very nervously holding my own with the material I have in my building. You know, when it snows every other day for a couple of weeks, you know, you end up having a demand and supply problem, and that's what's going on right now. You know, one of the terminals that was in Norwich that supplied salt for the other side, the eastern half of the state, is closed down. So the southern half of the state, everything's coming out of Gateway Terminal to Haven. They can only load so many trucks a day down there to haul salt out, and everybody's looking for the same exact thing. You know, so their ability to supply to meet our demand is it makes me nervous a little bit. You know, I do have material mixed in the building. Everybody needs to do a little snow dance and knock winter off for a couple weeks and let me get caught up here. Right this year, we're paying $57 a ton for salt, road salt. I would have to presume that next year, it'll be more. I'd hedge your bet that it'll be $10 a ton more next year, or maybe a hair more. It's
How many
very
tons you go
unpredictable.
through?
What's that?
How many tons you go through? Just out of curiosity.
So far this year, it's just in salt, I've gone through 800 tons of salt,
Wow.
plus the sand that gets mixed with it. So the ratio is 1 part salt, 3 parts sand.
Yeah. But it's 800 tons of salt.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And my other question, being a selectman, I get a lot of calls from people on Shelley Road. Any Shelley Road is on the list in the near future for work?
Yep, it is. You know, I have a list for the next budget season. It's you know, I call it my 50% list. So I already have half of the roads that I want to look at next year. You know, already estimated and everything else.
Okay, when we look at Shelley Road, can we look at widen a couple areas there?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know,
Yep.
the biggest issue I have with Shelley Road, there's a cross culvert between the two side roads that has to be replaced. It's a twin cross culvert. One of them's concrete. There's not much cover on it, and that's why there's a speed bump in the middle of Shelley Road. So I got to address that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else, Rich and Paul?
No, that's it.
Okay, all right, thanks. So Eric, did you say you were going to do transfer station or no? That just if there's any questions on that?
No, I didn't even put it in the slide because the only change is due to salaries. So if there's any questions on that. That's all.
Okay. Something was big about the salaries on the transfer station, didn't you?
Yeah, so, you know, what I did was I took last year's salary of $134,596 and I escalated it based on the contract for 19 and 20 on the retros, and that's approximately $5,700. But the current year for 21-22 is about 2808. So combining those numbers, you come up to the $142,000 salary figure. And I just wanted to point out that, you know, you're going from 134 to 141. That's a 5.3% increase in salaries, but you've got approximately 5,700 in there for retros. So if you were to take the retros out and the clothing, which it was a mistake on the finance department. We never had the clothing in this department, and so we put it in there. That's a change. If you took those two out, the increase in the account is 0.7%. Right now, it shows 4.17 because of the salaries and the clothing that's being included in the account. So,
If you had to add all of the salaries and all the 5%, 4%, what increase is it overall for the year for this year, this budget we're working on?
Typically, I mean, we've negotiated with the different unions, somewhere just about 2%, 2.25% for each one of the years. But you've got the police that have, 3 years of retro. You got public works that have 2 years of retro. Clerical, they settled theirs right away, so there's no retro in their contract. So theirs are pretty much straightforward. But you're going to see, I think what we're going to have available when we do the deliberations is a breakdown in summary of the wages similar to this, where you're going from last year's budget to the current year and how much it represents and whether or not it's discretionary or a mandatory change. We're hoping to we're putting that together now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the Board of Finance in connection with transfer station? Matt, it looks like the Board of Finance has no more questions in connection with the transfer station, Department 245.
Can I ask a question? And to Matt, I'm sorry, did I catch you?
Yeah.
I had a question. Matt, how far off is this as being a zero account? The revenue, the fees that this transfer takes in. How much are in the red are we?
Bob K, what's that?
Last year, let me just get to the page. I do have that. We were $1,800 deficit, $1,800 between revenue and expenses. We do have a balance due to the town for the old debt going back a number of years of about $560,000. So
how's the free table doing? Is it doing okay?
The what?
Yeah.
Maybe
there's
1,800 there somewhere, Matt.
My kids used to love that table.
What's that?
My kids used to love that table on a Saturday or Sunday.
Everybody knows from Bethel what that table is.
I got to tell you, we're members of HRRA. I think, Nick, you know that, right? That HRRA, we've had a couple of towns join us in the last couple of years, and the executive director has done a great job negotiating with the haulers in our area. And I'll just to give you the difference. We have to pay for, everybody has to pay to get rid of recycling now. There's no value in it since China stopped taking stuff in. But most towns around the state are paying upwards of between $90 and $100 per ton to get rid of municipal waste, and anywhere from $85 to $94 a ton to get rid of recycling. At our transfer station, we're only paying $10 a ton to get rid of this recycling, to have it hauled away, because of the contracts we have with HRA. So that is really helping us, because waste management has turned into a crisis, not only in the state, but in the country. And to show you what the magnitude is, in 2018, the city of Stamford made $50,000 that year on recyclables because they sold their own. They weren't part of a consortium the way we are. That has gone to a $550,000 cost to get rid of it. That's all coming out of taxpayers' pockets. City of Boston has gone from $100,000 in the positive in 2018 to $5 million negative. So so we are really lucky here that we're part of that organization, because it saved us a bundle.
Okay,
So, Matt, how much longer will that last?
That contract, we just signed it last year, so we've got it's a 10-year contract, so we've got 9 more years on it.
Okay, Matt, one more, if I can. Sure. I guess it must have been in that ad hoc committee that I was in, but Mike, and I think he's since retired, he was just telling us how bad the equipment was. The dumpsters are rotted out. I don't know how we're gonna get the next truck. I don't see no one's asking for any of that equipment now. Can you just give me a synopsis what the equipment's like?
Well, it's still old. We repaired a lot of it, welded new panels, steel panels in some of it. We've also gotten some replacements from used to be called Winters Brothers. Now it's Oak Ridge Recycling. So like we've got a new container for glass. The mattress recycling program has its own container. The Textile recycling has its own container. So we've managed to not have to go buy stuff, although, and I know Bob Dibble will tell you, the truck that we use for hauling that stuff out is going to have to get replaced sometime. I mean, that thing is so ancient. It's practically a Model T, but they've managed to keep it on the road.
Okay, but so there's no emergency right now. Everything is, I see it drive down the road. It's not pretty, but it drives down the road. Ellis had a lot of trucks like that for years, so thank you.
Yep.
I guess, well, just one more time, Board of Finance, any more questions on transfer station? Looks like, so Matt, the Board of Finance has no more questions on.
Okay, Richard, Paul, any questions about transfer?
No, not really. I'll confirm that, Matt, that old Chevrolet, it is an antique there. As a matter of fact, I think they took the seat out of one of the trucks that we got rid of and put it in the driver's seat, because the driver was previously sitting on springs and plywood. So that's how old that thing is. And Nick has been around there to see that too. No, it's true. We've been welding a lot there. I go to that dump a lot. And the fortunate thing is for, I think, the town, at one time, they were, if you recall, they wanted us to separate stuff into a single stream. Well, a single stream is not the way to go. I guess the way what we're doing right now is the right thing. It's what's preferred. So the idea of single stream has gone out the window.
Yep, that's true. Okay, Rich, any questions? Nope. Hey, Rich, you're muted.
Yeah, there were some other things we had discussed in the Board of Selectmen about maybe making a proposal with Oak Ridge now that we were talking with Winter Brothers before about let them do the hauling and things. So there's still some options there too that we need to look at.
Right, that's true. Okay, if there are no other questions on that, we're going to move on to 260, building maintenance. And Eric and Bob, the Eric and Bob show continues.
Indeed.
Whatever questions come up, just as a reminder, this really all the changes due to the various contracted services we have.
Any questions from the Board of Finance with respect to building maintenance?
Just give me 1 minute.
Yep, sure enough. Eric, to your point, it looks like it's all salaries, contracted services. The salaries are contractual, so the discretionary is within contracted services. To the extent, they're quote unquote discretionary.
What are the main contracted services that for that?
Brad, yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, no, I said, what are the contracted?
What's it changed?
Okay, so building maintenance.
Oh, okay.
This is the breakdown here. You can see.
Okay, wait, I'm trying to see it. It's very tiny, even when I blow it up. So I'm going on OpenGov to try to get to it.
Cynthia, click onto it and then slide it all the way over, and it's broken down there.
Yeah, I know that. It's just that I can't see the shared screen in a way that's helpful to me. So.
Eric and Bob can, from this list, I think hopefully you can see it. Of these costs, so starting with doors, roof, elevator, et cetera, going down to boilers, chillers, and HVAC on these contracted services, can you point out the ones that changed substantially?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Bob, you want me to do that?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so the emergency generator service increased about almost $3,500. HVAC was about a little more than $2,500 change. Cleaning went up by $2,000. Roof and automatic door service went up by almost 2,500. And elevator maintenance also went up, although I don't have the number right here in front of me. I guess if you want any more detail, let me know and I can go back in and maybe pull some things out. There's a lot of stuff in here. And a lot of these contracts have various differing timelines and may have been agreed, may have come certainly before my time. So hopefully that summary helps somewhat.
Yeah, I can see it now. It was hard for me.
Eric, is this from increased cost of the vendors or is this from additional service?
I believe mostly increased cost of the vendors. I think additional services might have just been HVAC related to the schools, but Bob, I defer to Bob Dibble. I defer to you if I may be wrong about that. But that's my understanding.
Yeah, there's about a 17,000 increase on here. And the biggest number is we had to add an exterminator contract on there, and it's $4,700. So that's really the biggest piece of that. In some of the other increases, the elevator contract we renewed, and it's on a 5-year contract. Now you got to remember, each of these contracts is not just a service contract. If you look at it in the context of it's the same as for your heating system or your boiler in your house, right? There's certain things that are they're going to service it. There's certain things that are covered with the contract, and a bunch of other things that aren't covered in there. So we try to look at if we have to put additional funds in there for things that we think that are going to be, the big breakdown items. But again, that $4,700 for the exterminator, right? That's a new item in that line. All right, and I can just go through the whole thing real quickly. Our fire and security alarm went up about $900. That's an expected increase in the contract. And these are all basically expected increases in the contracts, right? The automatic door service contract, that's for our Stanley, what we call Stanley doors. There's one at the town hall, and then there's one over at the library. Those are automatic doors, like handicap type doors, right? Okay. The roof maintenance contract went up $1,000. Our refuse service for the town went up $800. And our emergency generator service contract, there's a little bit of increase in there for the PD, and that's kind of it. So there are multiples of a couple $100, a few $100 here and there that are within these service contracts.
There's a dozen of them. That's why we split it up. That's why I try to group them into those 5 that you see there to try and untangle that mess a little bit, because there's over a dozen contracts.
Did anything go down?
Yeah, went down was our we actually went down a little bit on our boiler and furnace maintenance contracts for our municipal buildings. It went down $2,000.
Bob K, can I ask you a question about the salary again on this one? I see 6%.
Yep.
You can hear me.
I can. Yep.
And I'm new at this, and I know these are steps and contracts that are paying back for a couple of years, getting everybody caught up. Was that money in contingency, or we're paying for it in this budget we're talking about?
No, Nick, when we, in the years that we were in negotiation, we set aside in wage contingency an amount that we thought that maybe we were going to negotiate to. And each one of those years, we had them lumped together with the police, the public works and clerical, the year that we had all 3 contracts open, and even the dispatches, which we finished up this year. So we had those dollars associated in wage contingency, and every year we just increased the amount by what the additional year that we had to pay out. So no, it's not in this budget. It was paid to the, if it was paid out last year, the start, or the particular year that we're in right now, 21, we took it out of wage contingency and zeroed that out to the different salaries. So it's not in what you're looking at now, although the difference between the starting figure and the closing figure represents the increases over those years. But you're not paying for it in this budget.
So then why wouldn't this just show 2.5% what they're getting for July to July? But
Can I try to answer that? When we're, let's say we're coming up to the end of a contract and we go into negotiation, but we don't settle it, and it goes past the expiration date.
all that,
And it goes a whole year past it. We're in this year two. What Bob does is he tries to anticipate what that's going to be, and he sets that money aside in that previous fiscal year. But on our budget sheet here on OpenGov, the salary stays the same. So when you finally settle the contract and you put the new salary in, it distorts that number and makes it look bigger. But the retro was paid out of a previous fiscal year, so you're not paying all that difference in this budget.
we're not paying it all in this year, basically, right?
Correct. Yeah, you're correct. Got it.
You're taking an opening balance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and you're
it's
coming up with a
misleading.
closing balance, but in between, all right, you only have the one increase, the current year's increase for FY 22, okay? But 21, 22, but the retros were already included in
The prior year.
Bob, if it was, okay, they're gonna get a 2% and it went on for 2 years, you've got 4% in a bank account and you're allowed to hold that bank account? We don't need to settle up how we did. So you're allowed to keep that in there. There's some rule that you can keep it in there. So when I'm seeing a 6% increase, it's just on paper. So we're not raising the 6%.
That's right.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
what's increasing the budget here? Because you got to remember the other 2% or 4% was in wage contingency. It was always there in the budget.
Prior year.
In the other account, in miscellaneous transfers. We had it in miscellaneous transfers. So you got 2% there, but you can't show it up here. Okay?
So we're not raising everybody's taxes to 6% for this salary because we got 4% already in an account.
No.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I'm not a real smart person, but that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? It's this year we're only raising it the percentage their contract says because Bob K put it in an account 2 years ago. Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah. Wage contingency is one of those things that can cross fiscal years, like capital non-recurring. So
Something in the chart. Okay. All right. Does everybody understand that on the Board of Finance? I guess so.
We've been through it a few more years than you, Nick, so.
Not going to forget that one, I assure you, Bob.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that? And not to, because since I'm new to this process, so in other words, if we were to look at the total number in OpenGov, it would be slightly different than the total number that's going to be approved in the budget because of that difference?
No, it's the same number.
No.
What's in OpenGov is the budgeted amount.
Oh, okay.
Budgeted amount. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'll
the
ask
next
offline.
year-
Okay. Okay.
but
I don't want
next
to
year-
confuse things. Sorry.
following year, it's only going to be 1 year increase, so you're going to see that 2%.
Okay. Okay.
So next year, Nick, when you see the salary raises, it will only be the 2% from this year.
Or is there? Oh, easy. You didn't give him a raise yet, did you?
No, well, the
No.
contract,
No.
the contract is settled for the next 3 years.
Actually,
Rich,
yeah, the police expires in 22 and so does Public Works.
Like Oprah, everybody gets a raise. You get a new.
All right, from the Board of Finance, any more questions in connection with this account, this department? It looks like the Board of Finance is all set with 260.
Okay, Rich and Paul, any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Contracted services, I'd like to go back to that again. I'm assuming that these are on bid situations, right? Are they on bid situations or do we just assume that we go from year to year with the same contractor?
No, some of them are. Some of these contracts are through like Government Services Administration or North NGPA. So they're contracts that are negotiated through these federal agencies, through purchase power agencies. Like, for example, our elevator contract comes through the Joint Power Alliance. Same thing as when we buy like an excavator or a payloader, we buy it through government service, through the federal GSA, through Department of Agriculture. And because there are multitudes of towns and cities that are buying these contracts, signing up for these service contracts, that's where the discount exists.
Yeah, what caught my eye was the trash, how it went up this year. I find most of these trash contractors are pretty much competitive. Are we combining the purchase power with Board of Ed and the town to use the same contractor? I don't know, it might be an advantage to that. Maybe it's a few bucks, but $1 here, $1 there adds up to $1 million occasionally.
Yeah, I believe that is.
Yeah. Paul, as long as you brought that up, a few minutes ago, I was talking about, the crisis in the trash and recycling industry.
Right.
And how some cities that do their own hauling, where you have municipal hauling, have seen increases of hundreds of thousands of dollars in hauling trash. I did a calculation last year in 2019, because we don't have municipal trash service. We don't own a fleet of trucks and pick up at taxpayer expense. It's buried in the private haulers that people contract with. But looking at the rates, the best I could come up with is that Bethel ratepayers, who hire the different companies, have seen their costs go up cumulatively by about $250,000 a year. And it's hard to isolate because you've got it spread over commercial accounts and residential accounts.
Right.
But the cost of hauling trash is going way up. And it really, Katie Dykes, who's the commissioner of DEEP, did a speech at one of the conventions I was watching online. And we're really reaching a crisis point because the waste to energy plants that burn this stuff are starting to age out. The Mira plant, the big one that handles 52 towns that's based near Hartford, is going to shut down completely in 2022. And then there is that's like a 40% loss in capacity, which means that if we don't find ways to cut down the amount of trash that people throw away, that stuff has just got to go into landfills, which is going backwards by 40 years. It's a real problem. So I've been working on a task force to try to put together EPR programs and things that reduce the amount of stuff that gets tossed away.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, that 12,800, that's for all the all the dumpsters in our town buildings, right?
Correct.
Right? I mean, that's the thing on the page right there. That seems like I wouldn't do it for 12 grand. Pick it up every week.
Yeah, I know.
Right, exactly.
Well, competition is helping keep that rate as low as it is, but it's really putting a squeeze on the haulers. If you talk to Philip Presti sold his business to Oak Ridge. I don't know if you knew that, but you talk to the Ballard-Nilly guys or All American, they're getting the squeeze from both ends because of the cost of the stuff going up so much. Tough business.
Matt, I got a question.
Yeah.
How's the personnel in the maintenance department? We have anybody retiring? We be looking for new people, or
I got a couple
how's the
of
work
close.
there?
You looking, Rich?
No, I'm retired.
I don't know. Bob, did you answer that? Bob,
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple of guys that are, of that age, that have been talking about it. So, that's about all I know. I mean,
But just I was curious because if somebody retired, we would hire somebody at a lesser wage, or is that because that's a union job? They walk into the same pay grade.
It's a little bit less, but it's not. You don't have the big steps like you have in the teaching staff. It's narrower, but yeah, there would be a little bit.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, Rich and Paul?
No.
Okay, moving on to Eric, do you want to talk about tree warden at all, or that is what it is?
That's a pretty easy one. I guess the only thing I would point out is that, although the salary, well, the salary stayed static, but we don't have anyone right now, so, I guess that could change next year, but, we're looking for somebody.
Okay,
Yeah, can I ask a question?
sure.
I remember, again, last year was a tough budget season, and the tree warden really took it on the shorts. I remember, big cuts and everybody gasped, and we're not asking for any increase. So we're doing without pretty much. Eric, is it because there's no one there?
Nick, that account
Or what?
actually went up a good amount last year. I'll pull that number
Say
for
it
you.
again?
That account increased last year. So,
Did?
yep, if you give me 1 second, I'll tell you what the contracted went
The
up.
tree warden is very controversial department.
Believe it.
Very-
Excuse me. Oh,
Maybe it stayed static, but it used to be, I thought it increased, but I guess it was still the 75.
Yeah, I thought we had raised that account because of all the dead ash trees, and then the maple trees are going dead now alongside the road, so I thought we had.
I was looking at the wrong thing. We did increase it. So in 2020, it was 90,000. For 21, it was moved to 107.5.
okay.
So it
And,
went up 17.5 last year.
Richie, we did talk about those trees, and Bob Dibble had said that Eversource was kind of taking a lot of them down. It took the pressure off of this account. I remember Bob talking about that.
Yes, you're right
That's a good point.
about that.
So
Yes.
that's a good point that Nick, that was just made about Eversource. So why wouldn't that kind of temper that account a little bit? Like, why would it increase?
They only take down, well, first of all, they actually take down very many trees. In fact, pretty rare. They will trim trees that are by wires. But where we've got dead trees in the town right away that are nowhere near a wire, we don't get any help from Eversource.
Well, I will tell you this, that my trees, 2 big trees in my front of my house were next to wires, but they also, they were not in good shape. They cut them right down for me.
Good,
Cost
good.
me 0. Yeah, so they will do it. If your tree's almost to the wires and then they're cutting branches, if you want that whole tree taken down, they'll do it. Just, tips for teens.
Yep.
Okay.
I have nothing. We'll entertain it later.
Okay.
Any other questions from the Board of Finance on the tree ward, Department 270? All right, Matt, no more questions from the Board of Finance on 270.
Richard Paul, any other questions?
No.
No? Okay. Well, great. Eric, thank you very much. Bob, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate all the work you put into that. And you can hang around and watch the fun, or you can go have a drink, whatever. But we're going to move on to Department 330, which will be the last one tonight, Registrar of Voters. And I'm pleased to welcome Tim Beeble and our newest registrar, Wendy Cahill. Welcome, Wendy. This will be your first experience presenting, but you've got a pro with you there with Tim, who's been through this many times. So I'll turn the floor over to the two of you.
Thanks.
Hey, good evening. So yes, so Wendy has taken over for Nancy Ryan, who's retired, and so this year, and the two registrars function as co-department heads, and so we are proposing this year a flat bottom line budget of $108,065, and that would include salary increases. We're proposing a reduction in office expenses to fund the Registrar of Voters salary increases, which is already in our request. The charter requires that the Board of Finance set the salaries of the Registrar of Voters during the budget process. So we just wanted to kind of remind you of that. Last year, during the budget process, there was the Board of Finance chair was setting a goal or stating a goal that he was looking to kind of keep the mill rate flat. And so in response to that, the registrars withdrew their request for an increase. And we're basically coming back with that same request this year. So we're proposing $1,000 increase for the registrars and $300 for the deputies. And so this would be offset with a $500 savings in our postage expenses and also a $700 savings in office supplies. Since in a municipal year, we're expecting a reduction in both postage and the supply needs. And then also there's a reduction of about $1,400 in training expense for registrar of voters certification. I had anticipated that I was going to be stepping down, but I couldn't find anyone to replace me. So I won't need to go through the training to be certified. We just need enough money in there for Wendy to go through the certification process, and she's already started that. They're holding those classes now online because of COVID. Also, regarding election expenses, last year when we were proposing the budget, we had no idea that COVID was coming and no idea how it would impact the cost of elections. Since we didn't hold a budget referendum, there was a savings there, but it was completely consumed by the increased cost of running the presidential primary and the presidential election, because we had added from the Secretary of State, added mandated costs for sanitizers and social distance monitors in all the polling places. We are assuming at this point that for the budget referendum in April, that we will still have to have the social distance and the sanitizing people in place. So we're holding the election expense at the same level pretty much as last year. And then also, we just wanted to make a remark on the current year budget. We are going to overrun this current year budget, partially because of COVID, but also the town clerk had hired, I don't know, approximately 20 people to help with administering the absentee ballot applications and submitting those. That is normally a town clerk expense, but it was charged to our budget. So it's like an extra $22,000 got thrown on our backs. So we don't really, we're not going to be able to sustain that. But so I just want to give you the heads up that there will be an overrun, not a lot, maybe 5,000 or so. And then we've got our poll workers teed up for a Tuesday, April 20th budget referendum. So they've already penciled in that date, and we'll be able to work with that. If you have any other questions, Wendy and I are available to answer those.
Hey, Tim, it's Matt. The overrun you talked about because of the extra people that was required to manage the mail-in ballots, the absentees.
Yes.
Didn't the Secretary of State's office or FEMA have some reimbursement for that? I can't remember.
They gave us, we're showing in our budget $14,000 in grants that were kind of I guess considered a reduction in expenditures or an increase in our budget. So that offsets a portion of the $22,000.
Okay.
I received, and I'm gonna have to bounce this off of Brad and Bob, but we received an email recently from the Secretary of State indicating that there were 5 grants that came for elections, and we're only seeing 2 that are, or 3 that are credited to our account. So I don't know whether the other 2 were received or whether they were received and credited, say, to the town clerk's budget rather than ours.
Yeah.
But I do want to make sure that we receive what was supposed to be coming to us.
Yeah.
If you send
We'll
those
touch base
numbers, what they got,
tomorrow on that.
they probably went to revenue, because a lot of the FEMA reimbursement has gone to revenue, state miscellaneous. And again, that's an accounting issue that we have, that the revenue's got to go to revenue. Those, the 14,000 that hit your account probably should have gone to revenue too. So we'll have to look about possibly moving that. But send me those numbers, Tim, and I will confirm that we got that money.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I've got to check back again. I'm not sure whether they gave us the exact dollar amounts. They just said there were 5. And I know there are 3 that are showing up on our 330 account.
Well, we'll check out the revenue, but you can rest easy. We don't put people in stocks anymore when a global pandemic, runs up your budget.
Well,
Only
Nothing
Froggy.
to do about that.
Unless the stockade is properly sanitized. Tim and Wendy, first of all, my favorite department always is small but mighty. And the word offset, you said it 3 times, and it's like music to my ears. But I think, yeah, I'm like so pro registrar of voters. I just want to say I support everything you do.
Oh, and Cynthia, I do have something. You were talking about how many new people have come to town. And so I do have here that last year we processed 1,645 new voters.
Valid,
So,
like verified voters?
so those are new voters coming. Now this would include some kids who turned 18. So it doesn't really represent new people. And also, a lot of times, of course, people move in, but people sell their houses and they move out. So we're
Yeah.
not necessarily getting an increase in population, except for new houses that are being built or new apartments.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the Board of Finance? I had a question, maybe best for Bob and Brad, because I think it's just a presentation question. I'm looking on the paper copy and then the live open gov department numbers. And I have to be missing something. It's been a long day, so maybe I am. The actuals suggest the change from actuals to 2022 proposed looks to be a lot bigger than the net $2,600 reduction.
Is it?
Again, Bob K. or Brad, right? There's the fiscal 21 year actual, then there's the base, and then there's the 2022 proposed budget. If I go from the base to the proposal, it's an increase a decrease I can't follow. But if I go from the fiscal 21 year-to-date actuals, it goes from a big increase. There's a big increase. And so I'm only asking the question because I can't reconcile it. It looks like a big increase, which I think we know is not there.
So the 21 actuals is some of that expenses from doing some of the COVID stuff with the elections. Because that's pulled in from Munis, that's kind of a rough number because I don't know how often that's updated. But if you just look at the base, which is the 21 budget to the 22 proposed, it's down 2,600. And that 2,600 is the increases the registrars are asking for, but that's in the wage contingency account in the 420.
Okay, that's the answer. So the salary increases are not in 5101, they're in contingency.
Correct.
Yeah, we did that last year.
Okay,
Right. So I guess the finance department reduced our request by the 2,600.
Mhm.
And Tim, just so that you know that we do it that way every year. Where, to your point, we've got the charter section 10.9 that gives us the 5 positions. What we tend to do is talk about those individually post the budget passing.
Right, but the charter requires you to set the salaries during the budget process. It doesn't.
Set an amount for the salaries, and that's in the contingency. Not necessarily the individual salaries.
Okay, so yeah, because I'm just looking at the charter, and the charter says you have to set the salaries of elected officials during the budget process, not after the budget process. And just setting the money aside doesn't necessarily do that, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a Marty question, but
Yeah, and we've run it by Marty, and frankly, we ran it by the council who drafted it as well. I'm sorry, so I think no more questions from the Board of Finance on 330.
Rich and Paul?
Nothing.
No, Rich? No. All right, great. We're all done.
Wait a minute. Let me ask a question here. When will we address 400 non-government contingency subsidies?
Oh, did we leave that off?
No, that's included in the social
Oh,
service
that
department,
was-
$20,000.
Yeah, Megan carried over the same number from last year in that.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I got the sheet here. I was just looking at it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mhm.
all right.
Paul, you see on that sheet that there's a zero budget request on that because it all
Right.
zeroes out.
All
Because
right.
it was moved to social
Well,
service.
we can address that during our deliberations then between the selectmen.
Yep, okay. All right, well, I think that concludes our agenda for the night. Not bad, only 8:45.
Entertain
So,
motions to adjourn.
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
You got a second on the Board of Finance? All those on the Board of Finance in favor of adjourning? Sorry, we were so excited, Matt, we jumped ahead.
That's all right.
Board of Finance is adjourned.
Okay, Board of Selectmen, motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Paul, second by Rich. Those in favor?
Bye.
Good
Okay.
night, all.
Good night.
We are
Thank you
adjourned.
all.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to all our participants.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here.
Good night.
Night.